Indie games are some of the most underrated games of all time. In 2023, it's the best time to find indie games as there's so many fantastic developers making so many fantastic games. And some of them may become some of the most well-known games of all time, like Hollow Knight or Celeste, but a lot of the time, indie games have a tendency to fly under the radar. What I want to do is have a monthly series where I cover every single indie game that I personally played during the month and just tell you how they are, good or bad. The list won't be too long as it's games I've only played myself and I don't have all the time in the world. So there may not be as many games as I'd like on this list, but let's still get into it. The first game we're going to discuss is probably the most popular indie game from the previous month, and it's Dredge. It released March 30th, and in this game you play the entire game on a tiny boat going around different islands fishing. You sell your fish to upgrade your boat and get better lights, engines, and fill out your fish encyclopedia. But be careful if you stay out fishing too late. At night, the game somewhat turns into a horror game in some aspects. Now, when it comes to story, at first I didn't know what to do in the game, but the game has a lot of side quests you can do and a lot of fish that you can catch, and the story is just basically one giant mission. It's a little pricey at about $25 but worth every penny. And if you're a completionist like me, then you could get about 20 hours into the game like I did, depending on your pace. Great pickup for anyone. Next is another game that gained a little bit of traction, but not as much as Dredge. And you may have missed it, and it's Crab Champions. It released into early access on April 1st, and it's a third-person shooter action roguelite where you play as a crab with a gun. On paper, looking at this game, you would assume that it's kind of a joke, but the game plays very smoothly and has a good amount of variety with weapons and upgrades in a run. And on top of that, the music is great. You fight through 3 islands with 10 levels each, and if you do end up winning the game, you can just go through and play it again with all your upgrades. Really, this game is much better than you would expect, and for $10 US, it's definitely a good pickup. There's a lot of early access roguelike games that came out during this month, and here's another one that's a fantastic pickup, and it's Ravenswatch. This game was also highly anticipated as the devs that made this game are the same creators of Curse of the Dead Gods. It released into early access on April 6th, and it has that isometric type view. In the game, honestly, it feels like Curse of the Dead Gods, which is no surprise, but it feels so much better. You have 6 different characters to choose from during this first early access phase, and you can do 1 level total where you battle a nightmare that spawns after 4 days of in-game time. During those days, you battle enemies, level up, and gain upgrades. I will say the game feels very short for the $20 price point, as you can win the run in 30 minutes, but each character has their own meta progression with upgrades to unlock, so the replayability is still there for 1 level. I personally beat the game 3 times, and we'll check it out more when more content comes. This next game is a lot like Dome Keeper, one of my favorite games that I've covered on this channel, and this game is Wall World. It's another early access roguelike that released April 5th. Now, it does play a lot like Dome Keeper, and it looks a lot like Dome Keeper, but it does have its own charm. You explore the mines in the Wall World and collect different resources to upgrade your character, weapons, and vacuum, and then you fight waves of enemies. And every 20 minutes in a run, you fight a giant boss. I don't know what happens if you beat the boss, as I haven't been able to beat them yet, but it's a nice challenge. One thing I really enjoy about Wall World compared to Dome Keeper is that it has some sort of meta progression where you can upgrade your giant spider, yourself, and vacuum with currency you gain throughout the run. Now, for a game like Dome Keeper, it's much cheaper than Dome Keeper at a solid $5 US compared to Dome Keeper's about 20. It's a game you might have missed, and you might enjoy quite a bit if you're a fan of the Dome. Next, we have a game from our favorite genre, which is the Vampire Survivors-esque auto shooter horde survivor games. That's a tongue twister right there. Jesus. The game is GUNSUIT Guardians, and it released into early access on March 31st. And this game has some charm for the Vampire Survivor-esque genre. I really do feel like this is a quality title despite lacking some content early on. You have different suits that all have different abilities that you can choose from, different starting weapons, different starting buffs. That's a nice little cooldown that you use about every 45 seconds. And you can hold multiple weapons and multiple enhancements like damage, speed, auto heal, you know, the usual things. A run consists of 20 waves of enemies with a boss spawn in every 5 waves. But the bad thing is the boss moves are all super similar, so it could get a little old fast. But for a solid $3, you get your money's worth, and I'll be playing a lot more of this game when more content drops. The game also has a really good meta progression to buff your character between runs to make it easier. If you're a big fan of horde shooters and you want to try another one, I'd say you give GUNSUIT Guardians a try, as it's early access right now, and I can't wait to see what else gets added. Our final game we're going to talk about is a game that was highly anticipated, but it received a lot of negativity on release, and that's WILDFROST. It's a new tactical deck builder roguelite which released on April 12th on Nintendo Switch and Steam. The biggest complaint people seem to have with this game is the crazy amount of difficulty in the game, and I will say it is a hard game, but from what I've seen, the mixed reviews on Steam aren't justified with the difficulty. because I don't view it to be too bad, but I also don't know how long a run is. I've only made it to the 3rd area, and every new area I go to, I have a tendency to get destroyed pretty fast. The game overall is quite addicting. It has fantastic variety with different leaders you can choose from, and each leader is from a different clan, with each clan bringing different cards to the table. Outside of the run, the game has a good amount of meta progression where it asks you to do different tasks and runs, which will then lead you to unlocking new cards. Really, don't listen to the negative reviews just saying the game is too hard. The game has great replayability, music, graphics. It just so happens to be difficulty's the worst part of the game, but it's still an easy pickup for $20. And there you have it, a small list of some very fun indie games from April. Now, of course, I missed a lot of incredible games, but these are all the new indie games I personally have been able to play this past month, and I would recommend. Now, let me know in the comments down below what your favorite indie games from this past month were, or some games that you're highly anticipated to see. I would love to see your opinion on it, and I appreciate you watching this video, and a huge shout out to the people that support me on Patreon still. I appreciate the patience and the support very much. I hope you know that. And really, well, thanks for supporting, and I'll see you next time.